So, hello everyone. Excited to be here. Um, since February, we've been carrying the message of the Bancor Protocol, and we've received a lot of feedback and constantly learning how to explain it better and present it better. And I want to give you today kind of a very short description, simple description of what is the Bancor Protocol, what it does, and then give the stage to Bernard, who was one of the people who inspired me to even start with this entire project. I was watching his lectures about community currencies 5 and 6 years ago, and learned a lot from him. So really excited to be here with him. So Bancor Protocol is a protocol that allows the creation of smart tokens. Smart tokens are simply tokens on Ethereum, ERC20 compliant, and they allow to handle the liquidity in a different way. So what do you mean in the different way? Today, liquidity is provided by exchanges. Everyone knows that. You want your currency to be liquid, it needs to be listed in some exchanges. Recently, we've seen some decentralized exchanges, which is a great evolution. But that's how it works. And there's a process that I like to call it maybe the invisible hand of many, many different people using some kind of a process called, you can describe as the wisdom of the crowd, which use the bid and ask system in order to kind of discover the price of every asset. And this is how prices are discovered between different cryptocurrencies, as well as national currencies, as well as stocks and bonds and stuff like that. So Bancor is different because it doesn't use this model of exchange and bid and ask and what we've been seeing, because it uses something that have talked a lot about today, which is smart contracts. Just to show how big of an evolution that is, the smart contract. Because how it works with smart token, the smart token can hold one or more reserves of other tokens. And using those reserves, it can provide liquidity for its own token. So you can buy the token from the contract of the token, and you can sell the token through the contract of the token. So that's a different way that exchanges work today. Now the interesting thing is that the price discovery with Bancor is asynchronous. It's not like in exchanges where two parties have to agree on a price like in the same time. It's an asynchronous process where everyone that buys the token actually increases the price of the token, so the token will become more expensive for the next one to come, and everyone that sells the token actually decreases the price of the token, and the token will become cheaper for the next one to come. So if you look at this process over time, you get to this point of equilibrium between buyers and sellers. What is the price point in which you have the same amount of buyers and sellers for that specific token? And that token could be anything. It could be a community currency, it could be some kind of a bond or share, it could be anything that people can buy and sell. Now, the interesting thing about smart tokens is that they can have more than one reserve. They can actually have two, and that's fine. Two reserve means that the smart token itself becomes a bridge between those two reserves. And a reserve can be any standard ERC20 token. So when you have a smart token that have two reserves, it means that it can be bought for one reserve and sold for the other, providing essentially a bridge between them. Now, if you use several reserves, and those reserves each have what we call constant reserve ratio, which is the ratio between the value of the reserve and the market cap of the contract. Now, usually, you'll be okay with a small reserve of 5 or 10 or 15% of the market cap of the contract. But you can have several reserves that amounts to 100% of the value of the smart token. And when you have this situation, what the smart tokens function is as a currency basket. It becomes a basket of the reserve that it holds. So it can be used in order to hold several assets by holding a single one. Now, what's different about it, and I would say what's better about it, is because it's asynchronous, it enables a lot more use cases that we are not experiencing today. For example, today when we have asynchronous group chat or asynchronous online forums, we have many more different kinds of conversation that we wouldn't have if we only use synchronous solution. So if we would use only conference call or direct communication, real-time communication, then we'll have a specific set of conversation that we're having. But being able to converse asynchronously opens up a whole new list of use cases that we can use. So what Bancor is enabling in that sense is that it enables liquidity and price discovery for any currency, not matter how big or small it is. It's removing what we like to call the barrier to liquidity. The barrier to liquidity means that a currency needs to be on a certain size, on a certain scale, with a certain amount of interest in that currency in order to be liquid, in order to be tradable. And what Bancor Protocol does is remove that limitation and allowing any currency, even if it's used sporadically by very few people, to have a market price and liquidity based on how much it's sold and bought. So this is what I have to tell you about Bancor Protocol. I'll be happy to take some question if you have them, and then move the stage to Bernard.
What's your definition of liquidity? What's your definition of liquidity?
Of liquidity. Oh, the definition of liquidity is the ability to convert one currency to another. So if I want to convert my shekels to dollars, through an exchange, I'm able to do that, and there's high liquidity to do that. But if I'm trading on... So, some currencies, for example, if we look at the coin market cap and look at the currency that is the 300 in number, so some of them have actually low liquidity, meaning that there's not so much activity in the markets, and if you want to sell or buy them, it's going to be a problem. It's going to move the price drastically, so that will be low liquidity. And that happens when you don't have enough activity on the exchange. So this is the problem that Bancor Protocol essentially solves. This liquidity, it's called, I think in economic terms, it's called liquidity risk. If you think liquidity risk, if you think about it, all assets, you can measure them like stocks. You can move them and you can transfer them to each other, but the difference between the different stocks and the different currencies is the level of liquidity that you have for those assets. This is a very important property of an asset, of how liquid it is.
So you wouldn't say I can exchange into Bitcoin, but I don't need to pay off Bitcoin. That's liquid. So Bancor can apply that.
Yes, so Bancor is actually a system for liquidity that is not based on matching.
If anybody chooses for Bitcoin, you still can act as a counterpart.
I'm not sure I understood. Mm-hmm. I understand. I understand. So I'll answer this question. So let's say in this situation, when a lot of people are, let's say, want to sell their currency and buy Bitcoin, what they will do with the Bancor Protocol, as I explained, is that whenever you buy a currency, you increase its price. So as they buy more Bitcoin, they will actually have to pay more and more and more for each Bitcoin they buy, and that would incentivize arbitrage agents to come and kind of level the price with the market like they do with different exchanges. So I think every market, every currency has different needs for level of liquidity. For example, if I look at Bitcoin just as an example, you would usually see 0.2, 0.3 of the total supply in the biggest markets as market depth. So usually the supply that is available as liquidity is rather small. There are different examples. I'm sure that with smaller tokens, it's going to be more. But basically, the difference between having a reserve of 2% or 20% is that you would feel less fluctuation with a 20% and more fluctuation with a 2%. But the fact that the price goes up when the token is bought and down when the token is sold is still leading to the same conclusion. If the fluctuation in the middle are higher, you will still get to the same equilibrium price, which is the price point where you have the same numbers of buys and the same number of sales.
Okay, and then my last question. Do you have any person on your team who's been actively trading FX?
Yes.
Equities?
Sometimes I think,
Who do have experience, so not in coins, but just in actual FX. And I don't talk about private, but institutional money.
yes. We actually had the pleasure of discussing this concept today with Bernard, who was titled, I think, by Business Week as the top currency trader in the world in the 90s. So that was a good reference for us. Any more questions, please?
So, my understanding of liquidity is I'm not a trader or anything like that, but if I have an asset and I want to sell it, but nobody's buying it, nobody wants it, there's a liquidity problem right there. So is it that if I've understood correctly, you're essentially creating these baskets or these synthetic assets that allow you to sell my coin or my asset that nobody wants, but through other means? Is that it? I mean, how do you solve that?
So it's very important to understand that this mechanism works only for currencies that have an intrinsic use. I mean, if no one wants that currency, it's not going to help, because what will happen is that you will see only sellers, and quickly the reserve will go down, will decrease, and that would inflict the price. So as more and more people are selling it, the price is getting more and more closer to zero. So at some point, yeah, you can sell it, but you'll get peanuts for it. Now, if this token has any value to anyone, someone will say, oh, that's a very cheap price. I can get in this price. I actually believe in those guys. I believe something can come out of this project, or whatever you have to believe in order to think that this token is valuable. But if no one believes that it has any value at any point, the price will just go down to zero. Yes?
As I understand it, you are actually taking the role of a market maker, right? And you are a decentralized exchange, but where people can just buy and sell at market price.
So
You are setting the market price. Because when I go on the normal exchange, I set the market price. So bid ask the
So it's not exactly me that set the price. I'm providing smart contracts where you can go to the website and learn about them and see the code. The entity that set the price is the token itself, because the token knows when it's bought and how much of it, and when it's sold and how much of that. And over time, the token set its own price based on the buying and selling activity of the token. Yes.
So you mentioned that you buy a token, the price gets increased, right? Isn't there any seller? Because in the normal market, there's a seller for every buyer,
Okay.
right?
So the smart token works in such a way that when you buy it, new tokens are issued to you. So if you are buying a smart token, let's say that the token has in its reserve Ether. So you are sending Ether to the smart token. The Ether is added to the reserve, and new tokens are issued to you, generated just for you. And the price of each token goes up because of that. So everyone, even though there are more tokens in circulation, the price goes up because now the reserve has gone up. So the way that you don't buy it from someone, you buy it from the smart contract who issued the token. And the opposite also works. When I'm selling the smart token, I'm actually sending it back to the smart token, to the smart contract where it's destroyed, and I'm getting from the reserve some funds, and the price decreases. Yes?
Last question. If the price of the reserve itself is falling, so if I'm selling Ether and it's being issued, if the price of Ether collapses, does that mean that the price of my token collapses as well?
If you have a single reserve, yes. So if a token can have one or more reserves, but if you have a single reserve, your token is denominated in that reserve, but effectively, it would encourage, if the price of your token will go down because the price of Ether will go down, it would actually encourage buyer to buy your token if they think that the value of their token is $100 million. So it doesn't really matter what's the value of Ether. They really believe in the value of your token. So it will actually give like a buying opportunity to people to kind of fill in the Ethereum reserve. Yes?
So if I understand right, it's a similar concept to like Robin Hood co-op. Are you aware?
Not familiar with that, but I'll look at that. Interesting name. Yes. I think basically what we are doing here is trying to teach currencies use currencies through smart contracts. Because today currencies are using only by end users, and the way that currency connect to themselves is by end users actually replacing them, with, kind of exchanging them between themselves. But if currencies can use currencies, now they can, because we have smart contracts that can have balance and can kind of work with reserves. So if currency can use currency, then the currencies can be connected between themselves. It's like the difference between having many TCP/IP networks and people running with USB drives in order to kind of pass information between them, or having an internet exchange point between those TCP/IP networks and let those networks connect by themselves without people working in order to connect those different networks. Yeah. Oh, is it coming with a price? Yes, the price is that you need to have a reserve. But research show that when currency becomes liquid, it becomes 30% at least more valuable just by being liquid. Or any kind of assets. It's actually gaining a lot of value. This is a valuable thing to be liquid. So it comes with a price. You need to have a reserve, but we think it's a price that is well worth it. Thank you very much.